All right, and today we have Wendy Huntoon and Marla Meehl and even Kate Mace if she decides to chime in talking about the WINS program. So I'll turn it over to you, Wendy, if you want to get started.
Jason, thanks so much. Uh, as Jason said, I'm going to talk about the WINS program, and the title of the talk is Advanced Training and Professional Development for Network Engineers, the WINS Experience. We have a new logo. Logos are always important. It goes along with our pronounceable acronym. Again, always good things in this community. So just to give you some background, the WINS program, or Women in IT Networking at Supercomputing, or WINS, it's a 3-year program funded by the National Science Foundation and was developed as a means for addressing the prevalent gender gap that exists in information technology, particularly in the fields of network engineering and high-performance computing. I'll just pause here to say a little bit about how it started, and it actually came about by Jason approaching me and talking about how to get more women involved in SciNet. As many of you may know, while Marla and I both have management positions now, we both started out as network engineers. I still like to think of myself as a network engineer, even though none of the organizations I work with or for actually allow me to configure anything anymore. But we've been in the community for quite a while, and one of the things that we would always do is count the number of the women in the room. And I was very involved in SciNet early on in the 1990s. And it was sort of surprising to see that there weren't as many women involved as there have been sort of early on. And so one of the things that we came up with, one of the barriers in terms of participating in supercomputing and SciNet, is actually the cost of going to supercomputing. And so that's how this program sort of came about. So it's a collaborative project that's managed by the University Corporation for Atmospheric Research, UCAR, which is where Marla is based, the Energy Sciences Network, ESNet, Kate Mace, Lauren Rotman, as well as Jason contribute from ESNet, and then the Keystone Initiative for Network-Based Education and Research, KINBER. And where I'm the president and CEO of the organization. We introduced it as a pilot program in November of 2015, and we used funding from a project that Marla had in order to sort of get the proof of concept associated with the program. So what do? We actually enable somewhere between 5 to 8 women per year to participate in SciNet, a unique hands-on experience in building an operational research network from the ground up. As I'm sure many of you know, that SciNet provides an ideal professional development opportunity for engineers and technologists looking for direct access to the most cutting-edge network hardware and software while working side by side with the world's leading network and software engineers and the top network technology vendors. Again, I found from my experience at SciNet that I made some of my closest collaborative work relationships, as well as got exposed to a broad set of technology by participating. And we just wanted to make sure a broad, diverse group of network engineers nationwide had that same experience. So we actually fund the WINS participants to attend conferences to raise awareness of SciNet, as well as diversity issues in IT, as well as for professional development. Some of the places, so obviously they go to supercomputing each year, but we also send them to regional and national conferences, including the Quilt Scenic Annual Meeting, and most recently the Internet 2 Technology Exchange. So some of our goals, and the program group really thought a lot about what we were trying to accomplish as we put together the program. So we're trying to expand the skill sets, the professional network and communication skills, including public speaking for the participants. We provide technical training that is applicable and valuable to the participants' home institution. Again, that gets back to the boots on the ground training that you get within SciNet. You get to see a lot of technical problems that you wouldn't see in your home institution, get exposure to a broader set of technology, again, than you might at your home institution, especially if you come from a smaller organization. We're trying to increase the diversity of the SciNet volunteer pool. as well as get repeat volunteers. So we're really trying not to have this be a one-off, but to get volunteers who are funded by WINS in the first year, maybe for a repeat year, but then will continue to participate long-term. We really are trying to raise the awareness of the issue of women in IT. Again, Marla and I have been in the community for a long time, and one of the things that we both noticed is that it wasn't necessarily getting more diverse over time. We've also, in this past year, we started gathering program information, including candidate metrics, as well as SINET surveys. We surveyed both the mentors and the participants in order to better understand gender diversity in network engineering community, and then use this information to develop a sustainable program, as well as to go back and educate people on what some of the issues are in terms of a diverse network engineering pool of people. So I've mentioned who the team is. So Marla is the PI. I'm the co-PI at KINBER, so we have Kate, Lauren, and Jason. We also have Eileen and Belinda from UCAR who provide a lot of the administrative support, and then Russia, who's currently at UT Austin, who's been providing support for the application process as well as collected the statistics that we're going to talk about. So here are the WINS recipients for SC17. We had 6 recipients this past year. One of them, Dory, was self-funded from the University of Buffalo. One of the things that we do is they all are assigned to different teams. So we had Soledad was on network security, Manuka was on the routing and networking, Maria was on communication, Tanya was on routing, Kate was on the WAN, and Dory was on the DevOps. And we work with each of the SINET teams to make sure that the placement is appropriate. We have a pretty rigorous application review process. We have a committee that actually helps us review all of the applications that come in, and also look at the skill sets in terms of the teams that the people will get placed on. So just some pictures. Here's the team from last year. Here all of the WINS recipients that were participating last year. This is both the SC19 as well as the repeating return volunteers. One of the things that we've been really fortunate of is the keynote at Supercomputing. They have been mentioning WINS in the past 2 years. So this is just a view of the presentation from the keynote at Supercomputing last year. So just to give you an idea of sort of who the finalists are, as well as what the applicants look like. So far, WINS has funded 19 women to participate in SINET. Since we started the program in 2015, we've really learned a lot along the way. So here you'll see the applications of finalists and the returning, and obviously, there were no returning for 15, but we're seeing growth in the returning for 16 and 17. I think it's going to be interesting to see this year how many of the participants return because they're funded by their home institution. So one of the things that we've really started to collect is some of the job information statistics and how that relates to how we're actually selecting the volunteers. And so what you'll see here is what the total applicants are as well as the total finalists. And one of the things that we're going to be careful in the current application round is to make sure we encourage applicants from sort of the appropriate job areas, as well as make sure that we're providing opportunities for sort of a broader set of job titles as well. So the majority of the finalists are employed in the field of network engineering, network architecture, or security. One of the things that you'll see is that we also are getting people in the area of desktop support or system administration. And so one of the things that we're going to be looking at is if there's appropriate team placement for people who have experience in those areas. And again, from a professional growth standpoint, those are often viewed as entry-level areas where if they get exposure to a broader set of skills that maybe they can grow professionally into a different position. So educational background, and this is sort of interesting that, again, the majority of the applicants have a bachelor's degree. Most of the finalists have a bachelor or a master's degree, so we certainly are sort of taking, picking finalists based on what their educational experience is. What's not shown in these pie graphs, but it was looked at when we went through the applications, is that many of the applicants actually start out at a community college and then go on to study at four-year college or universities. And I think that's something that we see is fairly prevalent in the STEM field, that there's a lot of sort of initial education that's going on at community colleges or even small liberal arts schools, and then people either go on to a four-year college or go on and get a master's or a PhD. So we're really focusing on early and mid-career applicants, and that's something that we fine-tuned a little bit during the application process. So quite frankly, we do discourage applicants who have a significant experience, specifically in network engineering. If it's someone who's moved into the IT field but has experience in other areas, we still view that as early or mid-career. But this, it really is not a program for sort of later in career professionals. So the majority of the finalists have 5 years or less experience in their field. And again, the fact that we're really looking at doing this from a professional development standpoint, I think we really want to provide some of those opportunities for the women early on in their career. So here, I just want to talk a little bit about some of the experiences that the women themselves have had in terms of participating in the program. So the first I'll mention is Jessica Schaefer. She is at Georgia Tech. So that she found for the benefits of participation, unique challenge with endless learning opportunities. I think for those of us who have participated in SciNet, we understand what the opportunities are, but I think that there's so many people out there that just don't really understand the benefits of participating in an activity like this. The opportunity to network with other SciNet members, especially the WINS participants. And we have found that providing that cohort and having them work together. One of the things that I must say I was very surprised by is the lack of travel experience that some of our finalists have had. That's something that we now provide a lot of support for. I think many of us in the community who have done a lot of traveling, you know, at least I've forgotten that that's not commonplace, especially at universities and at sort of early and mid-career positions. One of the things that I think is really important is the information and experience that the volunteers can bring back and share with their home institution. One of the things that we continually hear is the learning on equipment unavailable, so that they have a broader experience with equipment and maybe be able to start looking at, you know, additional vendor platforms to bring into their home institution environment. And Jessica has highly recommended the program. She has gone on to give presentations at a number of different places. She and I gave a presentation at the SOX regional conference about a year ago, and then Jessica was one of the diversity scholarship winners for the Internet to Technology Exchange, and she was on a panel at the Technology Exchange this past fall as well. So Julia Statz, she's at Scenic. So here's what she had to say about her experience. Opportunity to learn software development aspects of network engineering. Again, exposing her to something that she may not have had the opportunity to be exposed to back at her home institution. To get acquainted with both SciNet and the HPC community. I think that is one of the really valuable aspects of SciNet, is both the high performance computing, but also interaction with some of the researchers as well. Chance to collaborate with and be mentored by experts in our industry. Meet and network with professionals in the field. be able to attend the technical programs and witness new technologies at SciNet. So that is the other thing. As a member of SciNet, they are able to participate in the technical program. So there's sort of this trade-off in terms of, going to SciNet, actually providing the technical support for the conference, but then also being able to participate in the other activities, including the technical program. So Tanya, who's at Purdue University, here are some of her comments. It's a great experience. I used a lot of different vendors and devices. In my day-to-day work at Purdue, I don't get to do that, so it's a really good learning from a technical perspective. Also exposure to the people who you're working with. The experts from her team created a cooperative space for the WINS participants, never hesitated to ask a question, even if I felt like it was a stupid one, because everyone knew that we were there to learn. And I think that's really important. I think we all see this. I certainly see this from a management perspective. When I hire new people, sometimes they're afraid to ask questions, that they don't want to seem naive or not experienced in specific areas. So providing this opportunity that is specifically for, learning and professional development and getting people to ask questions and be inquisitive, I think is just a great experience. Again, she talks about the collaborative nature of the organization and the fact that there was social aspects. And I think this does go to the networking opportunities associated with the conference. She said the connections made at SC17 are still strong, and not surprisingly, they're staying connected through technology. They have a Slack channel for chatting with our team. Anytime anyone faces an issue, a configuration issue, or anything in their day-to-day job, they can post it there. Other experts are there so they can give you some thoughts about how to solve things. And I think, especially those of you who've been participating a lot in these brown bag sessions, we know that people network is so important in our day-to-day jobs in terms of trying to solve hard problems, and quite frankly, often shortening the time it takes for us to solve a problem. And so I think this program is really working to form that network, and a diverse network of network engineers nationwide. I think the hands-on experience, again, Tanya has talked about that, that hands-on experience, as well as the ability to extend the professional contacts with the experts. One of the things at the Technology Exchange for Internet 2 in the fall, we had Thomas Miller, who's Jessica's manager at Georgia Tech. We really wanted to see what the manager's perspective was. And so he talked about what the benefits to the home institution were. So one is to, attend and contribute to a high-profile conference, receive mentoring from industry professionals, represent Georgia Tech well to the outside world, real-world exposure to new and different challenges, bring back the experience and ideas to team members, increase diversity in the networking field. And through this program, I think that we've really raised awareness of the value of SciNet to a broader set of institutions as well. We haven't really gone back and measured that to see if there's a broader set of organizations that are willing to send volunteers to SciNet, but that we are hoping that that is one of the benefits of this program as well. So I just wanted to go over what the upcoming timeline is. We're at the point where we're going to release our call for applicants. We expect to release that on March 1st. We typically have a 3-week window for people to submit their applications. Sometimes we extend that if we think that the applications are slow coming in, but we will be closing it by the end of March. We will not go into April. The applications are reviewed in April with the SciNet 18 volunteers selected and announced by mid-May. One of the things that we found as we've been putting this program together is that the sooner we can get the volunteers onto the teams, the better it is both for the teams as well as for the individual volunteers. So what we've done is we've set up this timeline so that they can start as soon as possible. By, I think, June or so, the teams really start getting active. They'll get integrated into that. and be sort of a, full-fledged contributing member to the team, which is what the expectation is. So some of the things that we've done, we've updated the application process to aim to improve the applications. One of the things that we're going to do this year is have a sample resume to help highlight experience and skills. That's one of the things that we found that, especially since we're looking at mid and early career applicants, that some of them have not had as much experience putting together a resume, and so we want to help address that. We're also, for the letter of recommendation, that's a very important part of the application process. We're also looking to get the organization to indicate if there is institutional support for funding and a time commitment for return participation in SINET. We are not going to use this as a set criteria for selecting the participants, but we might use this as a secondary criteria if it's down to a couple of people who have sort of the same qualifications. We may actually take this into consideration in terms of getting sort of that consistent pool of volunteers associated with SINET. I know that was really quick, but one of the things that Marla and I like to do is really have a discussion on this. We've found, in terms of our outreach activities, that having a discussion about mentoring early and mid-career network engineers, not just women, but within our organizations as a whole, has been very positive and has really highlighted the need to develop professionals in this field so that we have a really good, broad, and diverse set of network engineers for our community. So at this point, I'll stop and see if folks have comments or questions, and ask Marla and Kate to chime in as well.
Yeah, this is Marla. Thanks, Wendy, for doing that. And I do want to note that WINS is largely a volunteer project from the terms of Wendy, I, Jason, Kate, and Laura, and we do it out of a passion for what we're doing. And it really would not be what it is without this fabulous team that works on it. And I do want to compliment them, because I think the commitment has been incredible, and it has been very visible and very successful. But that's because it has a really great, committed team working on it.
All right, well, thank you both for that. And we'll just pause here and wait for some questions to come in. I wrote down a couple that I'll use to sort of seed the discussion here. What was the total number of applications last year, Wendy or Marla? I forget the number.
I think we had 33.
Yeah. And one of the things we have improved our process. So we had gotten some applications in the past. I think the year before it was 36, but we had to disqualify some of them. They were from outside the United States. So we've made that very clear. And we've also made it clear that this is not for students, including graduate students, and that you do have to be employed. So again, we have sort of honed in on sort of the type of applicant that we're looking at.
Okay. And sort of a related question to that, what's the biggest thing that the people who are putting in the applications are looking to gain out of this experience? Do you happen to have that data handy? What are they putting down that they're really looking to get the most out of this?
That's an interesting question, Jason. I don't know that we've got that exact metric. We certainly do gather that in the application, what their goal is, and Wendy, maybe that's something we should look at. But I think having looked through the applications and generally looking through what they do gain, it's this combination of exposure to technical and hardware and equipment and things they just don't get in their organizations. A number of the awards have actually come from fairly small schools, so they get really great technical exposure. They get exposed to a set of expert engineers that they really don't get, again, in their more isolated university environments and lab environments, and they get this professional network growth both through the SINET team, which they connect to, but then the other women that most of them have all stayed in touch, and they get access to our team as well. And so you can see the network just continuing to grow, and we've been able to connect various WINS people with either jobs or with meetings they can go to in their area or meetings we're aware of that they might not be aware of. So I think it's an ongoing item that all of them have noted that they've gotten all three of those.
And I'll just add as well that I think it's an opportunity to go to the conference. I think in the community, it's a bit of a misnomer that supercomputing is just for people who have supercomputers. And so especially for some of these colleges and universities, it's typically a regional networks that wouldn't necessarily be sending someone to supercomputing, that it's an opportunity to do some, to travel to a conference that they wouldn't necessarily be able to go to on their own.
Okay, thank you. So we have our first question. Does WINS track participants to see if they are able to leverage the skills they develop within SciNet at their home institutions?
Yeah, and for the first time this year, Kate did send out, and Kate, maybe you're better to talk about this, did send out a survey to the returning candidates to see what the impact has been on their job. Have they been able to use that information? And that also comes out in the surveys that we send out immediately after WINS. And we've also asked whether it's impacted, say, job promotions or job pay, or and we're still kind of gathering those statistics, but we are trying to get some of that information of what is the feedback mechanism and are they taking things back to their home institutions.
Yeah, just to add to that, this is Kate. Yeah, absolutely what Wendy said, and we did get a lot of feedback, but it's still an ongoing process. A lot of the ones that immediately replied to the questions, we send out, as Wendy said, a questionnaire immediately following, or within a week after they've kind of recovered of the excitement of SciNet and SC. On the participants that just finished their round at SciNet, and they all have said by and large that I think the one thing that stands out the most is that people said that they had exposure and were able to actually configure equipment that they don't have at their home institution. Say for example, if they're a Cisco shop, they were able to work on Juniper routers or whatever the case may be. So that's been a big value just right off the bat, in expanding their knowledge that way. But we have had a few participants from prior years report that they have applied for and actually been awarded a different position or a promotion at their organization, and did credit that to their participation in SciNet, just kind of opening their eyes to what's available, maybe giving them more confidence in what they feel like they could accomplish, or even what they're capable of learning, and kind of giving them more of a voice in the community. So, but yes, it's an ongoing thing, and as Marla said, we're going to continue to track that even more so in the future.
All right, thank you both. Next question from Scott. How is word spread to potential applicants in the R&E community? Are there ways to assist if one has a potential applicant in mind?
So I'll start with that, and then I'll have Marla and Kate follow up. So we have a standard set of mailing lists that we publicize the call for applicants to. And we're always looking at ways of adding to who we send out the notification to, because we really want to get as broad a pool as possible. So I think if you have specific applicants, and I did not put it on the in the slides, but Jason, we can send the URL for the WINS website out to this list. So I think that that's one thing that people can do, is share the URL for the website, as well as get back in touch with either me or Marla if you have a specific candidate, or if you have a mailing list that you think that we should be sending the call for applicants to.
Yeah, we have a pretty broad list, this Marla. We do the quilt, which reaches all the regionals. All of us reach our direct regionals. ESNet uses a number of the DOE lists. We use NSFPI lists, DOE PI lists. I think Jason actually sends it to this list. And we are trying to broaden a little bit more this year to some minority organizations. We try and go to Society of Women Engineers, So I agree with Wendy. If you have suggestions of mailing lists, don't hesitate to just email me or her, and we'll add those to our list. But hopefully what we encourage people to do is if you see it and you don't necessarily have a direct contact or candidate, feel free to forward it out to lists that you have access to, which we encourage the regionals, then to reach back out to their universities. We also use Internet 2 sends it out to their CIO list. So we try and do a pretty broad brush. As Wendy says, we've gotten better at that. We've added entities and realized that we've missed groups. One of the things Wendy noted in the slides is that we are heavy on network engineer backgrounds, and that's because we're all network engineers and we tend to use network engineer lists. It doesn't mean that other IT professionals couldn't benefit from this and couldn't participate. We just probably don't have quite the right lists to get to more system administrators or high performance computing administrators, those kind of things. And it is a bit restrictive in that we do request early to mid-career. So that's just something to keep in mind. I mean, that's a pretty loose definition, right? But we try and we are encouraging a little bit earlier in the career than say Wendy and I.
One other thing is we also do is we partner with because this is a partnership as well with SciNet and with the SC conference series. And so we actually work with the SC communications team to get the information and call for participation on the SC webpage, but then have them send it out on their blogs and mailing lists as well. So.
Yeah, Kate, that's a good point.
And one of the things that was interesting, we have collected the stats, and what we showed you was just a small portion of the statistics that we've collected. But it was interesting, we did not get applicants from 27 states. So it's clear that while we have all these different mailing lists, that we're probably not reaching all the different parts of the country that we would like to be reaching. And that it was interesting in those 27 states, a lot of them were EPSCoR states, which again, this exposure to conferences like SciNet, getting that network engineering experience, sometimes it's a struggle in some of those states. And so again, we're trying to figure out this year how we can get, again, broader representation in our application pool.
All right, thank you very much. And to hit on something a little bit earlier, I think it was Marla who said we're engineers, so we hit engineering lists. I know that many of you are not engineers, and I'm looking at you, Vaughn. We need to get the word out in other communities. So we need security people, we need systems people, we need software people. SciNet is all of those things and more. So the more help we can get getting the word out, the more successful this will all be. So the next question/comment is from Sharon. WINS is terrific and inspirational program. Like KINBER, NYSERNet now has a diversity award for our annual conference. If WINS has applicants from New York, which are not selected, please refer them to us for the program. The timing will work out perfectly with their conference program. The coordination will deepen the impact of WINS. That's an excellent comment. And any regional that does have a similar program, please let us know.
And Sharon, we are actually, because you had a New York award this year, we are sending one of the WINS participants that was awarded this year to your NYSERNet conference. You've graciously offered to host them and have a session. But actually, this is a really interesting proposal, and I'm kind of thinking, Wendy and Kate and Jason will have to think about that follow-on step of people who don't get awarded. We do follow up. We do try and match awardees with their region and then do a follow-on report out. So for example, New York's being covered, and I've worked with Illinois. They're going to take care of or Indiana, they're going to cover one of the Indiana report outs. So we do that with the awardees, but that's kind of an interesting idea with the applicants, and maybe we can add that to our list to have that in the follow-on email to reach out to your regional and make that connection. We haven't done that with the people who haven't been awarded. So I appreciate that.
All right, next question from Eli. Are there post-event networking resources for the WINS participants? He's thinking specifically of an email list or a Slack channel or something similar. Clearly, people are able to network with each other on their own, but would there be value in explicitly providing a forum for discussion among the current and former participants, or has this been done already?
Yeah, I'll take that one. It has been done, to answer your question. Yes, good points. We do have a variety of mailing lists, one for each year, but then one that includes all of the participants and the WINS management team as well. But in addition, there is a Slack channel that the WINS participants have kind of their own, so that they don't, if they want to talk about whatever, they know how to reach all of us on the WINS management team, but they also have their own private forum and keep adding the new participants as they, join.
And I do use the list, like I just posted an article that came out about WINS, to the list. So we have a list for each year, and then we also have a list that includes everyone. And so it's a good way for us to, if there's something that comes up or an opportunity that comes up, we do try and use that list. Colorado and my regions actually, not coincidentally maybe, gotten a fair number of the awards, both from WINS, but also from the Internet to Inclusivity Initiative. And so I'm in the process of actually setting up just a Colorado list, because we did have one happy hour event, which was really well attended and interesting to go to. So, we're starting to see a kind of scaling where we've got enough people even within a region to get together.
Okay, so we've caught up on questions. I'll remind everybody again, if you have any, just type them in. I can think of another one here that I jotted down. From sort of the commentary that we've collected from the mentors and from the awardees, does any really stand out to any of you that's worth repeating? Any really good success story or thing that couldn't have been done without this program?
Well, I think the Colorado, Angie, who was at Colorado State University, very explicitly has said that it built her confidence so much that she, volunteered to go into a completely new security role at Colorado State University, and both because of the experience she gained and the kind of maturity and confidence she gained, she was able to step into that role and feel confident about doing that. So I think, building that confidence. I think Jessica's also one that I would point out. I've just seen her grow in the time from where she went to supercomputing to the report out she did with me at Quilt, and then I think Wendy, when you and Kate did the report out at Tech Exchange, she's just gained confidence in her public speaking and her professionalism, and I think again technically is much more confident. So I think that's happened with everybody, but I think it's really prevalent with those two, and I've talked to them about it.
And I think, as well as to answer your question about mentors as well, I've had a lot of interaction with the sign-up mentors. They basically are folks who are already volunteering to do a significant amount of work to get SIGNET up and running and operating, and running a team. A lot of them happen to be the team leads, but they also volunteer to be a mentor, if not themselves, but designate someone else on their team to work with the WINS participants to make sure that they're up to speed on what they need, and they're just a resource whenever they're needed. So, but the feedback that I've gotten from a lot of them is that it's been very valuable for them as well. Some of them have been doing SIGNET for a number of years, and having a new person come in that, they didn't necessarily pick themselves. Of course, they do, have input on who is put on their team, of course, once they're selected by the WINS committee. But just them kind of taking a step back and understanding that a new perspective on things that need to be explained, or maybe they aren't being clear in explaining things. It's been a learning process, but beneficial for all of them. Every mentor, they also fill out a feedback or a survey after the supercomputing event, and it's all been overwhelmingly positive. And we've all learned things along the way, and so we're going to focus this year a little bit more on giving more resources to the mentors as well, so that they have what they need in order to be successful to help these participants as well.
Okay.
And this is Marla, just following back up on your previous comments about regional meetings. I guess one of the things, you know, that Wendy pointed out is this is to raise awareness. And I think one of the positive things that I maybe didn't anticipate when we went into this was how other people have embraced diversity and have come up with their own creative solutions or creative programs to try and increase you know, the diversity. So I guess, you know, while we have your attention, we encourage you to think that way as well. One, communicating the WINS program is great, but you know, I think we've seen that a fairly small, you know, not wildly funded program has had really far-reaching impacts, and so I think a number of the regionals have taken that to heart. And campuses, I have an example of I work with a group in the Western states, and you know, have given this presentation a number of times, and you know, a number of them have gone off and started working on diversity programs largely with students, but really thinking outside the box where they recruit students to get more women. And one of the organizations, University of Idaho, has actually you know, increased their students in IT to almost 50% women, because they started looking you know, at arts and sciences, sororities, places that we don't always look for engineers. And so you know, I do encourage everyone to sort of at least think as you're working, how do we get more diversity. And again, this program is focused on women, but as many of us know, we have other diversity issues, so it's not just looking for how to get that diversity.
All right. So next question that came in from Cassandra, thinking about how we can get something like this going in South Africa. She represents SANREN, but she's doing some time with ESNet. So is there any advice for how to set a program like this up internationally?
Well, I've talked to, this is Marla, Steve Hooter, who's working on the international program out of Oregon, and he's also interested in broadening to an international component. One of the issues, you know, we've had is because this is NSF and DOE funding, it is restricted, as Wendy said, to the United States. You know, clearly we had champions. It was really Jason and Lauren and Wendy who came up with this idea. I just happened to have a a project that could be funded and leveraged. And so, you know, I think you need a champion in your country or your organization, or you know, something equivalent to do this. And then I think, you know, you need to socialize it with some sort of funding agency. Obviously, you need to get some sort of seed funding. You know, for an international country to be sending people to supercomputing is obviously much more expensive. You know, just to give you an idea, this project, you know, runs, you know, fairly slim. We're looking at about $45,000 a year, and that includes funding women to go to the staging, going to the 2 weeks of supercomputing, and to report out as needed, and some amount of travel for the WINS team to go to PI meetings, that kind of thing. So it's not a lot of money. You know, in the case of the champions, as I said, we aren't directly paid. If all of us were paid, it would be it would be a much more expensive program. But you know, if you have a champion and you can find some sort of base funding, you know, I think you can do it at a fairly, and I would encourage you not to make it too large too fast. I think because we've scaled this fairly small, you know, it's manageable. You know, and the pilot program, I think, really, as Kate and Wendy have said, taught us a lot and enabled us to fine tune the program a little bit better for the follow-on 3 years. And I guess I will add, we are looking at ways to continue WINS. Our funding goes through SC18 and the report outs that follow that. So we'll end in June 2019. But you know, we are looking at alternatives for continuing this, because it has been a really successful program, and what kind of funding and ongoing support would be needed to do that. And Wendy, Kate, Jason, you maybe have better ideas of how to kick it off. And I've also talked to Mary in Europe, you know, about doing something similar in a European front.
And I know that there have also been discussions on the SC committee, because there, you know, on the committee there are several representatives, you know, from international locations, and so that's kind of an ongoing conversation, but we haven't really come come up with, a solid plan forward. But there's definitely lots of interest. It's probably about time for some folks to actually put some pen to paper and see if we can figure something out. Because it's going to take, I think, several people from the community to figure out maybe a way to do that. Whether it's, WINS or a separate program, that you may come up with in South Africa or something similar, Cassandra.
All right, so I'm still not seeing any additional questions, so I'll pause just to thank you guys again for your time today. I'll get this recording posted a little bit later. If there's no more questions, I think we may be at the end here. We're going to be taking a 1-week pause, mainly because I'm going to be on travel next week and I can't run this, but the week after we're able to secure the time of someone in the law profession that's going to try to give us a good overview of net neutrality and what it sort of means to us in the R&E space. So look for the announcement for that. I'll thank Wendy and Marla and Kate again for their time today, and hope everybody has a good weekend.
Thanks, Jason.
Jason.